Mm, I think the good thing about the Scandinavian scene is that it's so small, so you can actually really get a good impression of it. And you have a lot of, in Denmark, you have a lot of artist-run spaces, which I think is great. There's a really good energy, but I think one thing I'm not that interested in the Scandinavian scene is that there's a lot of minimalism and there's a lot of like coolness, and I think we need some more color and we need some more body and
ugliness
and something. I mean, I studied at Malmö Art Academy, which has this very like specific style. Also, a lot of people work with these minimalist gray, white objects and a certain ideology also about art and the artwork as an autonomous thing. And I think it's a very conservative way of approaching art making. I'm not attacking all minimalist sculpture. I think there can be interesting minimalist sculpture. But I definitely think that the Scandinavian scene could need more, another energy, another power, and another way of directly engaging with the body. I feel like, and maybe that's also why I work so much between theater and visual arts, because I think one thing that theater does is that it's not as afraid to speak directly about stuff as the art scene, as the visual art scene sometimes is. And I think that's something that the visual art scene could really learn from theater. I mean, there's also conservative ideas in theater. So I also think theater could learn a lot from visual arts. But that's at least one thing that I'm interested in, on how to also not be afraid to talk directly about stuff and have a more open language. When I'm writing about my work, I try to write about love and about all these things that can sometimes seem a bit cheesy when they're in an exhibition text. But I think that's also it's also really important to explore that and not like cover everything up in this like academia way of writing about art as if it was some kind of object completely foreign to our everyday life. Because I mean, so much art stems from our everyday life. I mean, one artist that has really meant a lot for me is the artist Laura Provost, because of her way of making critical work and having fun at the same time, which I think is super inspiring. She has this way where she has a certain way of generating artworks. It's like she creates these fictions that then becomes motors for creating artworks. So she makes this work about her like fictional granddad being a conceptual artist, and that then she starts making works as him, which I think is a really clever way of working. I mean, I'm always interested in also creating fictions and working within fictions, because it's something that allows the viewer to immerse themselves, but it's also something that allows you as an artist to immerse yourself in your project and to have fun and take on these other identities, which I think for me at least is an important part of art making. So she has been a big inspiration for me. And I mean, performance in a performance context, I've been very inspired by theater in general. I watch a lot of plays, but in a visual arts context, I think one artist that I'm really interested in, even though I also find his method to be problematic sometimes, is the artist Thiemers Magasin, because of the way that he works with these big performance productions where you don't know who is part of the performance and who isn't, and you get these really intimate experiences with the performers where it feels like they are talking about their own lives. And I think that's something really that can be really moving and terrifying also to experience. And I think that's a really interesting way of working also. I think one of the reasons why I'm so interested in love and desire is because as a queer person, it's always like this thing that's been very shameful in a way, and a thing that I've been struggling with a lot. I mean, everyone struggles with love and desire, but when you don't fit into this heteronormative idea of how you should love or how you should enter into relations, I mean, it's something that I've been thinking a lot about, but not until the last years working with directly in my art. And I think also I'm just puzzled by how terrible our vocabulary is when it comes to love and sex and desire and all these things that are so important, but that we really struggle to talk about, and that we have a really bad culture for talking about it. Because I also grew up in these very in these like groups of boys not knowing how to talk about this stuff, and it was always something that was made into a joke or made into something violent or scary, and I think for me working with these things is also a way of trying to develop a language to talk about it, in a way to talk about falling in love, to talk about being hurt, to talk about staying with the trouble in a relationship, or all these different things that are part of being human. And one thing that is general to my work is these different narratives. I almost always work with these different stories. Like I made a film about a bird that fell in love with a statue that was actually inspired by a true story about this group of scientists that wanted to make a colony of gannets, which is this certain seabird. And then they made a fake one, or a lot of them in concrete. And then only one real bird arrived that then fell in love with one of these concrete gannets and brought gifts for it and caressed its concrete feathers. And this became the starting point for my film, Searching for Nature. And I think it's a very good example of the way that I work, of finding these stories that are about impossible love and desire, and working with them also as analogies of how we humans interact and have relations. And that film then became this mix between documentary and fiction, and also allowed these, I was interviewing these people where this fiction and this story about the bird allowed them to talk about their own lives in a different way. And I gave them these different prompts. So they had to talk about a former relationship, but talk about it in a way where you wouldn't know if it was a bird or a person. That then opened up this other way for them to talk about these past relations. Yeah.